Hi, everybody. Happy Wednesday. We are live for day 3 of the 12 days of brand archetypes. Looks like I am alive, or not alive. I am alive. It looks like I am alive. It's been one of those days. But hi, everybody. We are here for day 3 of the 12 days of brand archetypes. So today we are exploring the visionary archetype, which is associated with Gemini rising. So sometimes Facebook Lives make it easy, and sometimes they make it uneasy to see who's here, to see comments, and all the things. So give me a second to get my little system going. If you're here, say hi though, so I can see if your name, whose names pop up. I see one person on. Say hi. We're gonna see if I'm getting comments in real time today or not. It just depends. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and dive right in and just assume that if anyone is on, they can see me. Hi, Lisa. Perfect. All right, so we're talking about the visionary archetype today. So just in case you are tuning in for the first day of the 12 days of brand archetypes, what we're doing is dedicating one day for each of these 12 days. We started 2 days ago. We started on Monday. We're on day 3 right now, but we are dedicating one day for each archetype. We're going to talk about that brand archetype, talk about the essence of it, what it means for you and for your brand, and more importantly, I basically, my intention here is to remind you of this part of yourself, because this is programming, this is coding, this is an identity that already exists within you. So I'm going to be looking at your charts as well, and each day I'm looking at different parts of the chart. So I'm not looking at the same aspects in the human design chart for all 12 days. Different archetypes, I think there's different breadcrumbs and different clues and different paths that we can use in the human design chart. So if you are on live with me, say hi. If you're watching the replay, put hashtag replay so I know who's here. And also let me know in the comments if you are a Gemini rising. So your rising sign can't be found in the human design chart. It has to be found in your astrology chart, in your natal chart. It's also known as your ascendant. So if you know what your ascendant sign is, that's the same thing as your rising sign. And we use your rising sign to determine your brand archetype, because your rising sign is who your soul came here to be. And so for us as spiritual, heart-led, soul-led entrepreneurs, it makes sense that our business and our brands and all of the impact and all of the influence and all of the magic that we're creating through this channel of our brand is an extension of who our soul came here to be, right? So the rising sign really supports that and really makes it as mellifluous and flowy and amazing as it possibly can be. Hi, Dawn. What time is it for you? Is it early for you? Lisa said, I'm Gemini Sun, Libra rising. So Libra rising, that means you're the harmonizer, but you're definitely going to resonate with what we talk about today for sure. Wendy, hi. Awesome. Dawn is Gemini rising as well. Crystal is Gemini rising. Awesome. Caitlin is Gemini rising. Cool. Okay, so I love these lives because I really I love to feel into what is resonating with you. Oh, I thought you were in Australia, Dawn. You're in New Zealand. That's amazing. 9 a.m. is a good time of day. I really love hearing what's resonating with you and what's landing with you, because the lives, I have a loose structure always of the things that we're going to talk about, but I love to hear your feedback and feel into it and see like what we need to talk about instead, or, dive more into or whatever. Layla said, I'm just here to learn. I love that. Okay, so we're going to kick this thing off. The visionary archetype to me, in terms of the brand archetype, is really fascinating. So one thing I do want to say about this archetype system is we are focusing on your brand archetype. So that is basically the programming, the identity, the coding that your brand is consistently expressing. Because when your brand is really, really clear on what archetype it is, what archetype it's showing up as, then what you are doing is you are calling to and you are activating and you are attracting that archetype in somebody else. So us as humans, we're going to resonate with so many different archetypes. Like if you ever read an archetype book, it's like, oh, that's me, that's me, that's me, that's me. Like they're all us, right? We all as humans are just born with all of the archetypal programming innately in us. And archetypes are such a cool system, because at different seasons of your life and different parts of your life, like different archetypes will become your primary archetype. So, all of that to say, as you're listening to all of these trainings, you probably will resonate with a lot of what I'm saying. It is very, very healthy just as a human and as a soul, right? For you to work on strengthening different archetypes within you and really shifting into the higher expression of those. But with your brand archetype, I always advise very, very strongly to choose one archetype for your brand and go all in on that with your messaging, with your offers, with your branding, with your content, right? Everything that you put out and display should align to one archetype and one archetype only. And the reason for that is it makes your brand very, very clear on what it's about, what the essence of it is, who it is, right? Who it's here to help. When brands or any kind of public figure or any other like entity tries to basically embody and show up as multiple brand archetypes, what ends up happening most of the time is it becomes this lukewarm, watered down message that's not really resonating with anybody, right? And we hear that advice all the time that if you're trying to be for everybody, you're not going to be for anybody. And the brand archetype is the same thing. When you show up as one archetype, though, in your brand, not in your life, but in your brand, what you're doing is just being crystal clear on who you're here to serve. And the really cool thing about this system is the more that we learn how to align to our brand archetype and activate that archetype within ourselves and really create a brand that embodies that archetype fully. But at the same time, we're using our human design chart to continually get clear on what's correct for us, right? We're listening to our strategy and authority, and we're continually basically deconditioning the things that aren't us and really, really, really creating from that place of us, like of our uniqueness and our truth. You are going to have your brand archetype become this very, very unique version of itself. So it might feel like eventually you're the visionary mixed with some magician or the visionary mixed with some queen or whatever it might be. But that's not something that we can think our way to or strategize our way to. It's something we have to feel our way to. Does that make sense? People ask me that question all the time, and it's a really good question, right? Can I have two brand archetypes? Because we resonate with a lot, right? It's like, well, how do I choose between the rebel and the visionary? And it's like, well, you don't choose. Your chart chose for you for your brand, but the more that you really pursue yourself through your human design, the more that's going to naturally show itself. Dawn said, I'm actually an Australian. Oh, okay. Okay. Crystal said, learning my archetype literally changed the course of my business. It was so accurate for me. I love it. Oh my gosh, that makes me so excited. Hi, Susanna. Layla said, yes, it makes sense. Okay, cool. Um, and I love too the archetype system, like not just these archetypes that we're talking about, but goddess archetypes and like deeper archetypes for just personal development. It's a really, really, really beautiful personal development tool. Um, so the visionary is a really, really interesting one in terms of those of you that are the visionary archetype in your brand and you have a spiritual business. And what I mean by spiritual business is that you use tools like human design, manifestation, energy work, right? Thought work, whatever else, in order to help you create the most aligned, most abundant business possible. It doesn't necessarily mean, when I say spiritual business, it doesn't necessarily mean a business that is overtly spiritual, right? Like you could be a chiropractor, you could be a dentist, you could be a lawyer, where it's conventional, so to speak, yet you yourself are very spiritual. So that's what I mean when I say spiritual entrepreneur. Um, but for all of us who are entrepreneurs, what we are doing by deciding to be an entrepreneur, right? Deciding to start a brand, deciding to start a business, and then every day that we show up and we work on our business, we work in our business, we plan for it, we create things for it. That is the visionary archetype. So the visionary archetype for those of you where it's your brand archetype, it's very meta. It's very like, well, you have to learn this archetype anyways to be a successful entrepreneur, to be a happy entrepreneur, to be a fulfilled entrepreneur, to be a creative entrepreneur. So it's like you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. And I love that for you because it makes it really, it's really efficient. So you guys are super, super blessed in my mind with that because, you know, as a business owner, you have to wear like a bajillion hats all the time. And so this is pretty streamlined. So let's talk about the Gemini archetype first, and why, and basically the elements of the Gemini archetype that really make the visionary archetype who she is. So Gemini is an air sign. Gemini is very, very intelligent, very mental based. Gemini is here basically to express herself. And she tends to do that through communication, right? And through different modalities. And a lot of times she will be naturally gifted and naturally inclined to explore and develop her skills around artistic modalities. So we see the visionary. She's also known as the creator. We'll see this archetype expressed as the writer, right? Like Shakespeare. There's a bunch of Shakespeare books behind me. He was known as the bard, right? That is one of the expressions of the visionary archetype. Like a basic, or not a basic, but like a classic studio painter. Totally the visionary archetype. The entrepreneur is the visionary archetype. The sculptor, the singer, right? Any kind of songwriter, any kind of prolific creator. And so it doesn't mean that if you are the visionary that you have to have some kind of creative brand, although it can make sense. Like Wendy, who's on, she does brand design. That makes so much sense for the visionary archetype because you are here to express yourself, and oftentimes that shows up through artistic expression, but it doesn't have to be that way. So let me know in the comments, for those of you that are Gemini rising, if you I really want to know if you identify with being a creative person. Like if someone says the word creativity or tells you that you're creative, right? Or would ask you, like, are you creative? Like, how do you answer that? I'm super curious about that. That is one of the things that I notice with people that are the visionary archetype. That's where I notice there tends to be a block sometimes where they're like, well, I'm not creative, because they tend to think that creativity is like the classic conventional expression that we see of it with like dance or singing or writing or art or something like that, but it's not necessarily just that. With Gemini though, Gemini is like, whether you are a Gemini sun, a Gemini rising, Gemini moon, like those of you that have Gemini in a really prominent placement, it tends to be like almost this manifesting generator energy where you have a lot of different interests, you move quickly, you talk quickly, right? Like everything is quick because you're really quick minded, you're quick witted, you are quick, like you're here to be quick, you're here to get bored easily, but you really are here to explore the realm of creativity and explore the realm of expression and explore the realm of creation. Does that make sense? Let me see what it's saying. Wendy said, and your courses and programs have changed my life. So grateful for you. Thank you, Wendy. Caitlin said, as a life coach, my favorite is diving into creating a dream life vision with my clients. Yes. I love that you said that. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Dawn said, probably growing and redefining what my perception of creativity means. Yes, that is so wise. I love how you said that. Um, that is the high expression of the visionary, is really like, I talk about this a lot with projectors, how our signature is success. And I talk about how it's important for each individual projector to really redefine what success means for her, because we're taught that success means money in the bank and fancy cars and mansions and all of that. And that is not everyone's definition of success, right? And I really, really view creativity the same exact way, where someone might be like, yeah, I'm creative, I'm coloring all the time, I'm painting all the time, like I have paint everywhere, my fingers are always stained with ink and that kind of thing. That works, but it's not the only thing. So let's dive into the visionary archetype and really talk about who she's here to be and some of the things that keep her blocked. And then I'll dive into your charts and really look at that and use that as guidance. So the visionary, what she wants, every single archetype has this deep archetypal desire. It's something that they want more than anything. This is like their whole pursuit. This is what gets them out of bed in the morning, basically. So the visionary archetype, she desires to create something of lasting value. That is her big, 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 deep desire. And that can mean something physical like a sculpture or a painting, or like Taylor Swift, right, with her music legacy. But it can also mean a really healthy family, like a family legacy. It can also mean just an abundant life that you're obsessed with, something though that you created, something that you envisioned. Vision is a huge, huge, huge cornerstone, huge part of the visionary archetype, obviously, right? We know that. So something that you envisioned in your mind, and I do want to offer, not everyone is good at visualization, but something that you can feel into, or something that you just connect with, right? Something that doesn't exist yet, but you can fathom it in some way, you can imagine it in some way. So the visionary is here to imagine in whatever way suits you personally, and then to go to town until you create that thing. And a lot of times, the visionary, she might not even see her vision manifested in her lifetime. It might be like she gets the ball rolling for something that's going to actually take form in generations to come. So there's really no one way that the visionary needs to show up and needs to create. But that is essentially the essence of how she operates, is she has this inkling, she has this connection to something that has not yet taken 3D form, and then she goes on this quest, she goes on this path to actually create it. So the creation part is really important. That means that she shows up, right? She takes action. She uses her brain, she uses her hands, she uses her energy to bring this thing to life. So that is what she wants more than anything. And again, it doesn't have to be a book. It doesn't have to be a record. It doesn't have to be a sculpture. It doesn't have to be conventional art, although it very well can be. It can be just a joyous life. It can be, maybe she wants to create a really like sexy financial situation for herself, right? Or maybe she wants to create a whole new way that society operates, or maybe she wants to create a family that makes her heart just swell and burst with love every single moment of her, every second of her life, right? The actual thing that she's creating really doesn't matter. Crystal said, totally. It was a part of me that got buried within due to conditioning. But as I started piling those layers and getting in touch with my essence, it's now undeniable. I love that. Thank you for saying that too, because that actually reminds me to speak on this really, really important part. So, with Gemini, with the Gemini archetype, the high expression of Gemini, which also means the high expression of the visionary, there's this very, very childlike quality about her, not like an immature quality, right? Not a juvenile quality, but this childlike trust, this childlike desire to create, right? Like you watch a little kid, you give a little kid crayons, every single little kid is going to color with them, right? They're going to have fun, they're going to be able to create. Every single little kid is able to imagine and play and take like a rock and turn it into this fantasy scene. So, just like Crystal said, it was something that got buried within her due to conditioning. We're taught that. The visionary, although society, I do think, praises the visionary, we are not taught in school or generally with our families and stuff like that. We're really not taught to honor that part of ourselves. So, if that is a huge part of who you are, if you're Gemini rising, or if you resonate with this archetype just in your regular life, in your personal life, you chances are that that part of you probably wasn't like scorned upon, although it may have been, but she definitely probably wasn't like honored, right? She probably wasn't strengthened because you were taught to be rational, to get a regular job, right? To learn how to use spreadsheets and save the art and the fun and the creation and the imagination and the play for the weekend and that kind of thing. So I love that you said that because that is such a part of the visionary archetype story this day and age for sure. Um, so with the visionary, one of the big, big, big things that keeps her stuck. So this is, I'm speaking to all of you that are the visionary archetype in your brand. One of the big things that keeps her stuck is this fear that her creation will not be valuable. She's scared that she's going to pour her heart and her soul and all of her time, right, and dedicate her life to this thing. And then at the end of it all, find out that her vision wasn't special, that what she created wasn't special. And so that keeps her oftentimes from taking any action at all. It keeps her stuck in this like black and white world that she finds really boring, right? When she wants to be in a world full of color. So if you're noticing that about yourself, where you're like, I do have this dream, I do have this vision, but I'm really scared. What if I go after it and it doesn't work? What if I go after it and it sucks? What if I go after it and the world hates it, right? What if it gets rejected? So that is like a plight of the visionary archetype for sure, is that you're creating something from the essence of your soul and you're birthing it out into the world, and it feels so tender and so fragile and so scary. So if you are noticing yourself like holding back and your life pretty much feels like, maybe not your life, but like your business, right? Or something feels like you're just living in this world of beige when you want to be living in a world of rainbow, that is that visionary really stuck on that fear, that archetypal fear. Wendy said, yeah. Mm-hmm. So I have an example of this. It actually blew my mind the other day. And I talk about my husband a lot but it's always because I'm like, I'm a Scorpio, double Scorpio and a projector. So I'm always like analyzing him and like doing little experiments on him without telling him about it. But okay, so my husband, his brand archetype is Cancer rising. So he's the healer. But like I was saying, all of us as humans have different archetypes that are active within us, right? Like we're going to different archetypes are going to express themselves in different ways and all of that stuff. So my husband, he is 41 years old now, and for the majority of his career, like up until 2 years ago, 3 years ago, he was a professional chef. So he went to culinary school. He worked in restaurants all of his life. He got to like the tip top of his career ladder, right? He was this executive chef at this fancy steakhouse in Dallas, and it was his whole life. He worked endless hours. He put blood, sweat, and tears into it. And he's an amazing cook. Like he really mastered the whole cooking system, and like he really understands it on this deep level. But he was always frustrated. He's a generator. He was always frustrated, always angry, just like so unfulfilled about it. So now we were able to retire him from the restaurant industry, and now he has this business as a contractor. So one of his friends who's like a master contractor, they teamed up, and Will, my husband, has been learning. He's a 5'1", so he likes to learn. He's been learning so much over the past 2 years that they've been pursuing this. The business started as like he was washing houses, and then it progressed steadily to like carpentry and whatever else they do. But anyways, he was working on our house a couple weekends ago because some of like the siding and stuff was, I don't know, he was fixing it. And I was out there with him in the front yard, and he was like, I love this. It's so satisfying to me. And he like stepped back and he looked at what he had created on our house, and he was like, this just feels so good. And then he started talking about how in the kitchen when he was a chef, it felt really unsatisfying and really frustrating to him because he would put his heart and soul into creating a plate, and then it would get consumed 5 minutes later, right? And it would come back as this empty plate that got put into the dish pit, and like the cycle just repeated itself. But now he's using his creative abilities and his creative skills to create something that has enduring value, that has lasting value. And so this just happens to be in the form of a house. And I thought that was really interesting. And I was like, you realize that's the visionary archetype, right? When he was telling me all this. And he was like, no, but he had this fear, right? He had this frustration in his previous career that everything he was creating, it wasn't lasting value, it was getting eaten. And some chefs will definitely have a different mindset on that, right? They see their work as more of a legacy or whatever. But for him as an individual, that's how it was showing up. And so like that's what he's been focusing on in his work and in his skills, is like really taking a moment to step back and like take in what he created, and to realize, to actively intentionally realize that it's going to last for a long time, it's going to stay there for a long time. So there's a movie called 500 Days of Summer, and I love that movie. If y'all have ever seen it or haven't seen it, I recommend that you watch it. But the main character, he is a greeting card writer, but he had gone to school to be an architect, and his life, didn't pan out as he wanted to. And he, like, that's part of the story, is he kind of just like started to just go with the flow of things, although he wasn't completely fulfilled. And there's a part towards the end where he like kind of makes this really sarcastic, self-deprecating joke, and he was like, well, why would I want to do something disposable? Why would I want to create something disposable like a building when I could create something that lasts forever, like a greeting card? And it's really awkward. He's at a party and like no one really laughs, but that's another example of a visionary archetype like feeling totally unfulfilled because what they are creating every day doesn't have the value that they want it to have, or that their heart wants it to have. Does that make sense? Can y'all relate with that? Dawn said, this is really landing for me, Kelsey. Feel this deeply with what I'm envisioning to create. I love that. So one thing for all of you that are resonating with this, and you do feel like your story might not reflect exactly what I just shared, but if you feel like, you know what, like I feel like I'm getting close, but there's not the legacy part, right? So that's a huge part for the visionaries, that lasting value. And what I mean by that, it doesn't have to be a physical building that stays there forever, but do you feel like what you are pouring your heart and soul into is building upon itself, right? Do you feel like there's a legacy component to it? And if not, then that is something to ponder and something to sit with and something to ask your authority. It's like, how can I transform this? How can I transmute this into something where I feel like, yeah, like I am contributing to the world? So contribution is a huge part of what the visionary is longing for. Layla said, this is so awesome. I can totally relate. Good. And I hope that everybody who watches this live does relate to this in some way because, like I said, all of us, every single one of us, even if that this is not our brand archetype, this is really important um, for us to develop and strengthen this archetype and understand this archetype within ourselves as entrepreneurs. The entrepreneur is an expression of the visionary archetype. I call her the dream weaver, but that is what she's here to do, is to create a business, to create a brand that has impact and it contributes to society some way, contributes to her life in some way, right? And it's an expression of her art. It's an expression of her creation, her creativity. So all of you that are the visionary brand archetype, if the entrepreneurship thing really is like, I like to ask people this question. So those of you that have like your business is service based, let's say, and you're a coach or you are a healer in some way, you're a Reiki master, you're a teacher, right? Or something like that. I love to ask the question, and I'm asking this to all of you, and I want you to sit with it and answer it. Like, do you see yourself as the service provider? Or do you see yourself as the entrepreneur? Like, which personality, which identity feels bigger in you? For me, that answer is honestly like the entrepreneur. I would love to have a business with anything. I could be happy having a business that sold socks, right? Like I would be happy having a business that sold eggs. Like I don't care. I don't really care what the thing is. What the joy for me and like the magic for me comes with the actual business part, with the actual brand part. So that's such a question to contemplate. And if you answer the entrepreneur part, if you relate more to that part of yourself and that's the part that really excites you, then what I would really strongly suggest is considering going into some kind of where your service, your offer, the thing that you provide to people has to do with entrepreneurship, right? Has to do with branding, has to do with business, business coaching, copywriting. Like it's such a huge industry, but that could be really fulfilling to you and really exciting to you, and you could be really, really, really good at it. So just permission for that. If any of you have been like sitting on that secret dream and you haven't unleashed it yet, Lisa said entrepreneurship. I love that. Okay, so let's look at your charts. So what I want to look at today for the visionary, I want to talk about the creativity that lives within your chart. Do you guys see how I'm getting splotchy? I get splotchy when I get really excited, and I'm getting really excited about this topic today. So, what was I saying? Yeah, let's talk about the creativity. So I really want to help you with your individual charts to connect with the creativity, the creative force, and really get clear on what that flavor might be for you. Like we were just saying, it doesn't have to be that typical conventional creative expression that we see through art or through music or through books or through business, right? It can be for sure. That's super aligned and it's super it's a great, beautiful, perfect expression of the visionary, but it can also be something that you wouldn't typically peg as a visionary's creative expression, right? So even like a mom that has like 10 kids, totally the visionary, right? She's created a lot. She's created a lot of lives. So that's totally an expression of the visionary as well. Wendy said, I feel like I identify more with service. I'm feeling both of these. Like the entrepreneurship is just starting to present. Yeah, and that was just like a little something to chew on. Like that's not a rule of thumb or like any set thing in stone that you have to do. I just like that question. I always think it's really interesting. Especially for archetypes that are more like the healer and that kind of thing. But let's talk about the creative energy within your charts. So I'm going to pull up all the charts that were shared. Let's look at crystals. And Crystal, am I saying your name correctly? Let me know if I'm not. I love to use people's names, but I totally realize I probably pronounce them wrong most of the time. Okay, so the parts that we're going to look at today for the visionary, we're going to talk about the solar plexus, we're going to talk about the sacral, and we're going to talk about the heart center. So the solar plexus is the most creative center that there is in the human design chart. And the reason for this is because desire is part of the center. So when we have desire behind our creations, that is when we become unstoppable. And I talked about this in, what was it? What was it called? The master class that we did in February. I'm blanking on the name of it. Signature. I talked about this in Signature, but like really awakening this desire within you is the first step for the visionary. So I forgot to mention this, but another word that you can use for the visionary archetype, if visionary is not like, if it's not resonating with you, is the manifester. And not from the human design type sense, but like manifestation. So if manifestation is something that you love and something that you practice and something that you're good at, that's the visionary archetype. So the first step for creating anything that really is going to feel fulfilling to you and make you feel successful and proud, right? And like, oh my gosh, like this is what I was put on this earth to do. It's getting clear on what that is. So the more that you can really get clear on, well, what is it that I deeply desire in my heart? Not what does society tell me is possible, not what should I do, right? Not, oh, well, I have this degree, so I should use it. No, what does your heart say? Like, if anything were possible, if I had a magic wand and I could wave it and just bop you on the head with it and poof, it was here. Or like you had a genie bottle, right? You got one wish and it was instant. What would it be? What do you want to create? What would be just like, oh my gosh, if anything were possible, this is what I would do. This is what I would pursue. This is the business that I would have. And that is your answer to this question. Because when you can really get clear out deep down what that heart desire is for you, that is the first step for activating this visionary archetype within you. Oh, good, Crystal. Thank you for confirming. Okay, no worries, Wendy. The way that I usually do these, I try to be as like comprehensive as possible so that people whose charts I don't look at still can look at their own chart and get so much from it. So Crystal said, I love this. It takes so much weight off my shoulders. Follow my soul instead of trying to guess. Yes, exactly. So that right there, right? The whole point of all of this is so we can activate our brand archetypes within us because they're connected to our rising sign. So it's a huge part of our personality. It's a huge part of our natural gifts that we already have. But like y'all have been saying in the comments with conditioning, right? That we're taught sometimes to squash this part of ourselves, or we're taught to believe this part of ourselves isn't good enough or isn't worthy enough or whatever. The list goes on. But for the visionary, and this is true for all of you entrepreneurs, what your heart wants, what your heart deeply desires to create through your business is what is correct for you. So, with the solar plexus, if you're looking at your human design chart, it is the triangle to the far right. So, I think my camera is backwards. I think it's mirroring, but it is this one, this triangle right here. So, the solar plexus is in charge of our emotions. It's our emotional center, but it also is in charge of our desires. So, desires can stem from needs, right? Like you desire food because you need it. You desire water because you need it. But it can also, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? It goes up and up and up all the way to what's the top of the hierarchy? I forgot. Self fulfillment, self actualization, I think. Um, but Sorry, can y'all hear that out there? I have a 100-pound German Shepherd, and he's right outside. And sometimes he gets the zoomies when I'm on calls, and I'm always curious if there's like you can hear the big bang that he's doing out there. But anywho, so the solar plexus is really in charge of, it's in charge of desire, and so when we can activate that desire and become really wise stewards of that desire within us, right, where it feels like we have this burning flame within our bellies, but we like know how to use it. We know how to use it correctly to create the life that we want. That is when we become unstoppable creatively. And one thing that really blew my mind when I learned this is whether you're destroying or you're creating, it's the same energy. It's just different ends of the spectrum. So if you are noticing in your life or looking back, right, if you have patterns of self-destructive behavior or like just destroying things in your life, that is because there's that creative force that wants to come out, and it needs to come out, and it has to come out, and it will come out and destroy things if you're not if you haven't learned how to use it properly. So that's like a really good clue as well. What I'm doing right now is kind of just reminding you that this is you, right? Waking up, making you see like, oh my gosh, yes, that's me. Like that has been me my whole life. Because like I was saying, creativity, being a creative person is something that a lot of us don't identify with because we're taught to read your textbook, right? Follow the rules, like stay inside the lines and that kind of thing. So let's look at the solar plexus. So for Crystal, her solar plexus is undefined. What that means is that she might have, and this goes for any of you whose solar plexus is white on your chart and is undefined. So when a center on our human design chart is undefined, that means that there's probably a lot of conditioning that's there. Conditioning is when we are picking up and identifying with other people's ideas, other people's beliefs, other people's thoughts, and identifying with it, right? So taking action from it, creating from it. And so if you wake up one day and you're like, why am I living this life? I don't even recognize this. Like, who am I? I don't want this. How did this happen? That kind of thing, that is the result of conditioning. So, the conditioning that shows up with the undefined solar plexus is going to be, it can look like denying your emotions. So, if you grew up in a household where they told you like emotions were weak, and they may not have said like those direct words to you, but you were taught that, right? Um, Emotions were weak, don't show your emotions, emotions are not allowed, like you're too emotional, anything like that. The conditioning there taught you to suppress those emotions. So it also can look like um, not having coping mechanisms, not having tools to be able to process your emotions. And so sometimes that can manifest as like big tantrums, right? Where you just feel so big and you don't know what to do. It can look like impulsiveness. It can look like just, you name it. I'm sure all of you are familiar with that. So, the first step for those of you that are the visionary archetype that have an undefined solar plexus is to really look at your emotional life. Like, how would you say you're doing in terms of your emotional intelligence? Are you able to feel your emotions? Are you numb in your body, right? Are you able to like, are you able to label your emotions when you feel them? Can you be like, oh, this is joy, or oh, this is frustration, like, or this is anger, I'm mad, that kind of thing. So really, really attaching and really tangling together the idea that emotions equal creativity, right? The more emotionally intelligent you are, meaning the more that you feel, the more your creativity is going to be able to come out in the high expression way. So there's a million ways that you can learn how um, to shift your emotional life and become emotionally intelligent. I work with a mentor named Melanie Ann Layer, Alpha Femme, and I've been going through her emotional intelligence program and it's incredible. But really learning how to feel those emotions in your body, right? If you were taught to demonize your emotions, like emotions are bad, letting go of all of that. And I'm making it sound a lot simpler than I am, but that really is such a healthy first step for the visionary archetype with an undefined solar plexus. So, Crystal, let me know if that is resonating with you. Crystal said that's exactly what happened in my life. I have an undefined solar plexus as well, and totally like that was one of the places in the chart that I had to and am still doing the most deconditioning around. Like the undefined solar plexus is complex. The defined solar plexus is complex as well. But also too, if you find yourself avoiding any kind of conflict when the conflict would be healthy, right? Where it's like with your partner, for example, maybe he is doing something that isn't necessary and it's like annoying to you, or it's creating a hurdle in your day, or it's making your life harder in some way, but you don't want to say anything about it because he might react in a negative way and then you would feel his feelings. Anything like that where you're avoiding speaking up for yourself, you're avoiding speaking up about your needs because you know that it might make somebody else feel some type of way and then you'll feel it, that is another sign that there's conditioning still with that solar plexus. So, the good news is, though, with the solar plexus, when it's undefined on the chart, that means that you really are here to be such a wise guide in terms of our emotions. So, really, 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 like I was just saying, it starts with you. It starts with you learning how to feel your emotions and how to process them. And the good news is for y'all, as the visionary archetype, art, creativity, right? It's such a beautiful tool for processing and honoring and like feeling your feelings, like Taylor Swift, who y'all know I am obsessed with because I talk about her all the time. Her whole new album that she put out, it's 31 songs, and the majority of them are about this 2-month relationship that she had that ended quickly. And like that was her processing her feelings through that breakup. That is why she has such a stigma about her for like only singing about breakups, but it's because she processes her feelings and the experience through the creation of songs, which is so the visionary. So we hear this all the time, like the tortured artist and that kind of thing, but it's not a stereotype, it's an archetype. It is the visionary. So for those of you that are resonating with what I'm saying about emotions, like really, 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 next time you're angry, go get a journal and a Sharpie and just like scribble the whole page, right? That is a form of creating through your feelings, and that is the visionary. Crystal said, developing my emotional intelligence has given me the courage to explore new ways of expressing myself in different ways. I love that. Yes. Layla said, I love that. Yeah. Also, too, like, if there's a movie or music or something that you can put on while you're feeling a certain type of way, whether you want to cry or you're so excited and you just want to dance around your room. So you put on some old school Britney Spears, something like that. Like that is also the visionary. So just really learning how to attach creation of whatever that looks like with feelings is, it's magic for the visionary. Okay, Crystal said, learning to feel the fear and still take action. Yes. And fear is a huge part of the visionary story, because every time that you get an idea or a hit or an inkling to create something new, and the whole process through actually creating it, and then the whole process of actually putting it into the world, it's terrifying. So getting familiar with your fear, learning how to feel the fear and carry it with you like a heavy purse while still moving forward and still creating, is going to be one of the best things that you ever do for yourself as the visionary. Layla said, I feel so numbed when it comes to feelings and emotions. I feel like I'm just too mechanical. This is something we can definitely dive into in our one-to-one session, Layla. I would love to talk about that if you want to. And that's really common. What is on your chart, Layla? Do you have a defined solar plexus or undefined? Because it can show up for both. But the solar plexus would be the first place I would look. Okay, so I used Crystal's chart as the example, but this goes for all of you that are the visionary archetype that have a white solar plexus. So that triangle to the far right, if it is white on your chart, that means it's undefined. So really working on creating a relationship between you and your emotions, right? Like, what are your habits? What are your patterns around your emotions? Do you suppress them? Are you embarrassed by them, right? Or are you open about them? How would you say like you're falling on the scale from emotional intelligence to, what's the opposite of emotional intelligence? Emotional immaturity, right? So do you have like unhealthy coping mechanisms? Do you have defense mechanisms? Or would you say that you have healthy ways of processing your emotions? So that's the first step, so to speak. Because the more that we can really decondition the solar plexus, the more that we can tap into our desire. So, like I said, the solar plexus is the most creative center in the chart. The next thing I want to talk about is the sacral center. So Crystal is a projector, so that means that she has an undefined sacral center. The sacral center is going to be this second square from the bottom of your chart right here. So if you are a projector, reflector, or manifester, you automatically have an undefined sacral center, which means it's going to be white on your chart. If you are a manifesting generator or a generator, you automatically have a defined sacral center, so it's going to be colored in on your chart. The sacral center is also a very, very, very creative center. So first of all, the sacral center is in charge of life. So the sacral center is connected with like physical sex, right? The thing that is required in order to bring new life into the world. That right there is pure creative energy. But it also looks like creative action, right? So having this vision, having this desire to bring something into the world, and then taking action, creating a plan, right? Following your heart and moving, and like Crystal was saying, feeling the fear and doing it anyways. That is going to be what you can dig into with your sacral if you feel like you're a visionary with these ideas but you're not creating, or maybe you're procrastinating, or maybe you're waiting till the last minute and then you throw something together and you put it out there and you know that it's not what it could be or what you want it to be, right? That kind of thing. So with an undefined sacral center, in terms of creativity, first of all, it looks like, you've heard this a million bazillion times, but it's because it matters. So, those of us with an undefined sacral, meaning projector, manifestor, or reflector, what is your relationship like with work? Are you filling your schedule with meaningless tasks, right? There's a difference between creating and spinning your wheel. So all of those, and it's it's honestly easier, I think, for us to engage and fill our calendar and fill our schedule and fill our days with meaningless tasks versus really creative tasks. And meaningless might be the wrong word here, but like how do I want to say it? I can't think of the right word, but like basically tasks in your day that anybody could do, right? Or maybe that you don't have to do it all. Maybe are you spinning your wheels because you think that the more you do, the more action that you take, the more energy that you exert, is what's going to bring your results, is what's going to bring new clients, is what's going to bring new money, that kind of thing. So really looking at your relationship with work. I'm a projector. I have an undefined sacral center and I work a lot, but it doesn't feel like work to me. It feels like play to me. But that's because I fill my days with really creative stuff. Really, the only thing I do in my day now at this point in my business, it didn't used to be this way, but like now I do all of the Facebook stuff. Like that's me because I'm too scared to give anybody else my Facebook login because I think you get in like big trouble for that. And it also feels insincere. So like all of the responding to comments and stuff is me. And that's the only thing in my schedule that feels uncreative. And even that I like though, because I get to talk to y'all and like see people's names and that kind of thing. But other than that, what I'm doing is writing trainings, doing lives, right? Planning and strategizing launches and creating new programs and designing my website and taking like planning brand photo shoots. And it's really creative. But creative energy is also really scary because it means that you are basically reaching into the depths of your soul and putting it out into the world. So, a lot of times, what we do, those of you especially that are the visionary archetype, a lot of times what happens is in order to protect yourself, so to speak, right? You fill your calendar with draining actions that aren't necessarily moving the needle in your business and definitely aren't getting your creations out into the world. So, for example, it's a lot easier to, um, like, what's a good example? It's a lot easier to clean out your inbox, right? To go through all of your emails and delete them all and like organize your inbox than it is to write a live training that you're going to show up on a live stream and deliver. So, are you doing that? Are you like, I'm so busy, like my whole day, like I'm exhausted, I don't have time to do anything else? Well, what are you actually exerting your energy on? So, that's like a really interesting thing to look at and explore. Layla said busy work. That's the word I was looking for. Busy work. Layla's an expert at this, so let's see what she said. Busy work could be a coping mechanism to avoid being alone with your thoughts. Yep, I love the way that you said that. Exactly. Yeah. So if you are filling your calendar with busy work, spinning your wheel, doing things that you don't have to do or that aren't necessary, or your day just feels hard, it's because you're avoiding your thoughts. Motion to avoid emotion. Yes, that's exactly it. I love how you said that. Thank you for that. Yeah, so are you doing that? That's totally, totally, totally something that happens with that undefined sacral. So another thing to look at with the undefined sacral, here is something that blew my mind when I realized this. So those of us that have an undefined sacral, we are told that we don't have consistent physical energy, and that is true. But here's the thing, if your mind is telling you when you're tired that you need to stop, if your mind is the one making the decision that you're too exhausted to work today, or that you're too exhausted to write this speech or to put out your new offer or to do the new branding, right? That is not your authority. Your authority is the thing that needs to tell you whether or not it's time to stop working. So that blew my mind when I realized that, because human design, the whole point of this whole system is to learn to allow our authority to guide us. And that means on every single decision. So if you wake up in the morning and you have your calendar planned out, right? You were going to send an email, or you were going to write this new sales page, or whatever it might be. And then your brain tells you, oh, we're so tired today. We're about to start our period. Like, let's just lay in bed. Ask your authority. And if your authority says yes, rest, then do it. If your brain is telling you that, that is not following your strategy and authority. So that was like a new revelation that I had somewhat recently. But I think it's a really, really, really important thing to think about in terms of creation, in terms of creative energy. And that goes with those of you with a defined sacral as well. Just because you have a defined sacral center doesn't mean that you are here to work 24/7. It doesn't mean that hustle mentality, hustle culture is the right thing for you. That's not the right thing for anybody, right? So always use your authority in terms of, should I work today or should I rest? Should I stop working or should I keep going? All of that stuff. Your authority is going to be the thing that tells you. Okay. And then next, let's look at the heart center on Crystal's chart. So the reason I'm looking at the heart center, and this one is the little tiny triangle on the chart. It is right here. Can you see it? Right there. backwards. There we go. It's right there. So that little tiny center, although it's small, it is not innocent. It is very, very tricky and it's very troublesome sometimes, I find. So the heart center is in charge of lots of things: commitment, motivation, willpower, self worth, and value. And all of those things are such important skills and such important relationships to develop with yourself as the visionary archetype. So, the first thing I want to talk about though is the idea of value. The visionary archetype, her biggest desire in life, her biggest intention, what she is programmed to do during this lifetime is to create things of enduring value. Value is part of her definition. Value is part of her coding. So, just like we were talking about earlier with redefining what creativity means to you as the visionary, also redefine what does value mean to you, especially through the vessel of your business and through your brand. Does value mean that you are creating a digital course that you can sell over and over and over and over again so that you can rest or you can travel or you can create other things, right? While your students and your clients are being able to take the course and expand their life. Is that value to you? Or maybe value means that you build up a multi-million dollar business, a multi-million dollar brand, and then you sell it or something like that. There's endless ways that value can be defined. But what does value mean to you? That's a part of your equation as the visionary archetype. And it's really important to define that because, especially when for those of us that have a business on the internet, we're seeing so many other online brands, right? And so you might see an online brand that has big, huge launches all the time, and you're like, oh, that's a valuable brand. But is that actually valuable to you, or is that just what the industry is saying is valuable? So that's the first big like thing to contemplate there and to get familiar with. So, those of you that have a white heart center, this means it's undefined for you. And as we've been talking about, the undefined centers are where our conditioning shows up. It is where outside influence from outside sources dictates our life until we become aware of it and decide to take control. So, that is another thing to look at too is what were you taught growing up in your childhood, right, in your household, in the culture that you grew up in the society that you grew up in? What were you taught is valuable? What were you taught? I grew up in Dallas, Texas, and was taught that, like, you know, domestic skills like cooking and cleaning and all of that was valuable so that you could get married at a young age. And thankfully, that was something that my soul was like, I am not going to become a domestic goddess that doesn't feel good. So, really looking at like what were you told is valuable? What were you told makes you valuable? And then asking yourself, do I actually agree with that? Like, does my heart agree with that? And if it's a yes, that's great. If it's a no, then what is valuable to you? And then another really, really big important thing with the undefined heart center, and honestly, too, for the defined heart center, is really, really working on your belief that you are worthy because you are as a human, as a soul. Really disconnecting your worth as a human from your work's worth. This is so important. And this is just a good exercise for anybody because honestly, like, it's sad, but I think the majority of us wouldn't be able to honestly answer that question of do you believe that you're worthy because of conditioning, because of the world that we live in and all of those things. So, this was like the huge catalyst for my transformation with human design, and the thing that got the ball rolling and like started to bring in all of these outside results was I said one day to myself, I am worthy. And I realized in my body that I did not believe that statement. I didn't believe it. It didn't feel good. It wasn't true to me at that time. So every single day, I would do it driving in the car. I would do it constantly. Say to myself over and over and over again, I am worthy. I am worthy. I am worthy. And like really feel it and really practice and really try to believe it. And one thing that really helped with this is like when I would be at the grocery store or something, I would look at other people and in my head, I didn't say this out loud because I'd probably get arrested, but I would in my head say, you are worthy, like looking at that person and saying, you are worthy, especially kids, because that felt so true in my body. So then I started to get really familiar and really comfortable with what what that truth felt like, and then I started to apply it to myself. And I did it for probably every single day, multiple times a day for like a year. It took a while, but that is so, so, so important just as a human, but especially as the visionary archetype, because what can happen if you are not super, super, super solid on your own belief and your own self-worth, and the truth is, you are worthy because you are, period. But if you are not super solid on that, what we do is connect our worth with our achievements, right? So, for example, if you're like, okay, I have this goal to get to, I want to have a launch, I want to have my first launch, and I want it to be a $10,000 launch. If you don't hit that goal, you're going to attach your personal worth, your soul's worth, with the outcome that happens. If you do hit that result, you're going to attach your soul's worth to the outcome that happens. And that, it's A, it's not true, and B, it's the quickest way to drive yourself crazy. So, really like separating those two things. And then once you get like really solid on believing that you as a human are worthy, really starting to pour that into your work as well. My work is worthy. My art is worthy. My creation is worthy. My brand is worthy. One of the most powerful creative feelings that I have found is the feeling of recognition. And that is not like only allowed for projectors to feel. Anybody, especially the visionary archetype, can feel the feeling of recognition. So practice feeling recognized for your work, for your creations, right? So whether that means that you want to visualize an email coming in from a client that's like, oh my gosh, your work changed my life, like everything is different. Or if you want to imagine yourself up on stage getting a trophy, right? Or if you want to imagine yourself on the stage like you're at the Eras Tour and everyone is clapping for you. Whatever works for you. Like, this is between you and you. You don't have to tell anybody what your visualization is, but practice feeling revered, practice feeling recognized for your work, not for you, but for your work. And that's really, really powerful for the visionary archetype. So all of those things that I just talked about with the solar plexus, with the sacral, and with the heart were with Crystal's chart, and all three of hers are undefined. So I want to go through real quick for all of those centers if they're defined on your chart. So that way everybody that watched this can walk away with something relevant for their chart. So, with the defined solar plexus, this means that you have consistent access to your emotions, but it also means that you are designed to feel in a really, really, really big way. So if you have a defined solar plexus, that automatically means that your human design authority is emotional authority. That means that you are designed to really ride out this emotional wave and then make your decision about what you're going to do once you feel the feeling of clarity in your body. So, really getting comfortable with your emotional wave, knowing that some days you're going to have these big, like top of the world moments, right? You're going to feel like you are on top of the wave. You're going to feel awesome. You're going to feel exalted. And it's going to feel like that's it. That's the feeling for the rest of your life, right? When we like tend to be, I'm not emotional authority, but I've felt big feelings. And when we tend to be like at the height of our emotions, we think that that's permanent, and we tend to forget that it's probably going to shift very quickly. So also too, when you're at the bottom of your wave, same thing, right? Like knowing that that too will pass. Like you're having a bad day, you're having a bad couple days, whatever, you're at the bottom of your wave, you're designed to be like that. So if you do recognize yourself and identify yourself as an emotional person, just having these really big feelings, like learn how to, like we were just talking about with the undefined sacral or solar plexus, learn how to honor those, right? What tools can you use to help yourself through your emotional wave when you're feeling big? Another thing that's really helpful is to track your emotional wave, because depending on the channels and things like that defined in your chart, your emotional wave is going to show up differently, and it's going to break differently, so to speak. So really writing down, journaling, writing in an app, whatever however you want to track it, it can be really helpful to know your patterns around your emotional wave. So that way, like when it happens, for the fourth time, you're like, oh, I've been here before. I know what's about to happen. And so that might mean, creating your schedule around your emotion, your emotional wave, being like, you know what? I'm just like really grouchy today. I'm at the bottom of my wave and I don't want to create today. I don't want to create anything. I just want to do some admin work, do some busy work. That's okay. But like just getting familiar with your emotional world and how that emotional wave tends to show up for you. And then with the sacral center, if you have a defined sacral center in your chart, so that means if you are a generator or a manifesting generator. One thing that I always try to be like an advocate for the generators and the manifesting generators, because we hear so much about the undefined sacral, right? Don't work too much. Make sure you're resting. Take care of yourself, like all of that stuff. The same goes for the generators and the mani gens, though. Like, y'all are not superhumans. You don't have to be superhumans. No one's asking you to be the hero. So, really allowing yourself to rest when you need to, and taking care of yourself physically. Like, physical care is so important for the defined sacral. So that looks like moving your body. It can be as simple as going on a light walk, or doing yoga, or going to the gym. Maybe you do like to like do high intensity workouts or something like that, but you have this energy within you. So energy begets energy when you have a defined sacral center. So really supporting yourself. And that could look like during your workday, if you notice yourself getting fidgety or getting distracted easily or something like that, maybe you need a stand-up desk so you can be standing up and using more physical energy as you work. Or I had a coworker before. She had this thing under her desk that was like she pedaled, so she was like pedaling all day, and she had one of those little step counter watches that she wore, and her steps at the end of every day were like through the roof because of this peddler. So if you're finding yourself distracted, if you're finding yourself like if you have ADHD or anything like that, it might be because your sacral energy is like kind of all over the place, and so you're here to be a good steward of that and honor it. And I'm not saying like you can fix it overnight or like you're doing something wrong. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, really acknowledging, okay, I have the gift of this consistent sacral energy, but I do need to figure out ways to guide it and to be a good steward of it. And that looks like moving my body intentionally. That looks like noticing when I'm fidgety or when I'm feeling distracted or all over the place, especially with Gemini rising, right? Gemini rising tends to be like, blah, in terms of your brain. Um, and then also really playing with your pattern of how you like to create. Do you like to create something from start to finish? Especially if you have like the channel 4253, you might like to start something and then work on it and only it until you finish. Or if you're a manifesting generator, especially, you might like to start project over here, work on it until it doesn't feel shiny anymore, and then go work on this project, right? And when that doesn't feel shiny anymore, go back to this one. But really working on developing that self-discipline to where you will finish it, but figuring out how to make every step of the process fun. That's going to be powerful for the defined sacral. And then finally, we have that defined heart center. So if you have a defined heart center in your chart and you are the visionary archetype, um, one thing that's important with this is developing a really healthy relationship between commitment and willpower. So if you have a defined heart center, it means you have consistent access to willpower. If you have a defined sacral, that means that you're probably going to be able to white knuckle your way through something, even if it doesn't feel aligned anymore, and your authority is telling you to take a break or to put it away for a while or to stop it completely, right? Um, and you might like make your mind override and just push through, even though it doesn't feel fun anymore. So that is another thing that's really important with the visionary archetype, is feeling connected to your work, right? Feeling connected to the thing that you are creating. And we're in charge of that. We can learn how to um what's the word, create that that zest for our projects and stuff like that. So if you're finding yourself forcing yourself through things because you said yes to it, that might be an invitation from your soul to really align to your authority and that kind of thing. If you have a defined heart center and an undefined sacral, be really, really, really careful around your tendencies to use your willpower through something. That is how you burn out. You don't have consistent physical energy, but with a defined heart center, that means that you are forcing yourself to show up and to exert physical energy when you don't have it. And that is health issues, right? That is burnout. That is like putting yourself out for however long. So, just a little tip, a few tips there with those different centers, but those are the three that I would really dive into and explore as the visionary archetype. Okay, so we are a little over an hour. If anyone on the live has questions, feel free to pop them in right now and I will answer them. And then if you're watching the replay, let me know what resonated with you and let me know if you have any questions about anything. And oh, Spellbound is open for enrollment. So if this archetype stuff is really resonating with you, if this human design stuff is really resonating with you, I would love to have you join me in Spellbound. It's called Spellbound, the Magic of Client Attraction. And this program is all about really learning what the brand is that exists within your human design chart and then learning how to put that out into the world. So Spellbound is a really comprehensive program. I'm going to share the link in the comments for anybody that wants to check it out. But Spellbound is here to really help you get your magic, get your magical brand, get the brand that only you can create, the brand that you were designed to create. Spellbound is here to help you, first of all, learn what that is and then get it out into the world. So we work on a lot of different tangible things in your business, like your offers and your messaging and your content strategy and things like that. But we also work on a lot of like essence stuff. Like, what does your brand feel like? What does your brand, what is the essence of your brand? What is the feelings of your brand? And stuff that really doesn't make sense until you're in the program. But it is basically what's the soul of your brand according to your chart, and how do we get that out into the world? So it is, right now it's a 6 module program. The modules drip out as the program goes on, but we also have weekly calls together. So you'll have group calls with me. I make sure that the calls are that we have enough each week where each person gets their one-to-one time if they want it. You don't have to come to the calls or to utilize that, but it's there if you need it or want it. And we also have a private Spellbound Facebook group, where you can get additional support and share the things that you're working on and just build community and connect with other people that are going through the same journey. And then doors close May 3rd, I think, or maybe May 4th, I forgot, but they close in like a week and a half. And then as soon as you enroll, you'll get instant access to Brand Rising, which is the pre-work. And Brand Rising is all about really activating the archetype within you so that you can go into Spellbound like wearing the shoes of your archetype, right? Your brand archetype is you. It's your rising sign. So really activating this part of yourself, strengthening this part of yourself, reminding yourself of this part of yourself. I love the pre-work. It's very, very fun, very eye-opening, and it's also very embodied. So if anyone has any questions about Spellbound, or if you want to know if it's the right program for you, feel free to reach out to me. You can message me, you can email me. I will be very honest with you. I'm very open about what I think. And then, yeah, anything that you need or anything that's coming up, let me know. Otherwise, thank you all so much. Let's see. Wendy said, I'm a generator and I have such a difficult time slowing down and even balancing work and play. Mad energy. How is how's your exploration with your personal rhythm going, Wendy? Has that been like enlightening since we talked about it last? You know what? And that's the thing too. It's like if you feel good moving fast and you don't want to slow down and your authority doesn't tell you to slow down, then don't slow down. People tell me that all the time. They're like, you work too much, you do too much. But my authority, I'm a projector and I sleep a lot. I sleep a lot. Um, I'm a projector though, and while it is true I don't have an undefined sacral center, I'm always, always rooting into my authority about should I stop working? Should I rest? And when it's a yes, I do. But other than that, like my work feels like play. Like I'm always creating things. And so I all of that advice out there from outside about slowing down or not working so much and all of that, like it's not a blanket fix for people, right? It's not a box. So whatever your authority says is what's correct for you. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much. Layla, thank you. Thanks for being here. I hope that resonated with all of you visionary archetypes. And we need you. We need y'all to show up really big in your businesses because that's going to awaken the visionary in all of us who are pursuing businesses as well. So you're really, really important for just like the ecosystem of entrepreneurship and the ecosystem of online brands. No pressure, but you really are here to be that model for us and to show us what it looks like to know that we were made, that we were created, that we are called to pursue these brands and businesses. So we need you. Your work is important and it's needed and it matters. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for your time. I will send out an email with some more info about the visionary archetype, and I will see you tomorrow for the healer archetype. Bye.